The bus lurched to a stop, the brakes hissing like a wounded animal. "Welcome home." Soldiers was painted across the old Greyhound station wall, faded and peeling. Jake Calloway stepped off, a single duffel bag slung over his shoulder, his boots hitting the pavement like gunfire in the silence of his homecoming. Nobody was there to greet him. The air smelled different here, cleaner than the desert, but unfamiliar. The sounds of cars, distant conversation, and life moving forward clashed with the stillness inside his head. He adjusted the strap on his bag, rolled his aching shoulder, and started walking. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times, stepping onto the front porch, dropping his bag, pulling his wife into his arms, feeling his son's small hands grip his wrist, hearing his daughter's giggle as he swung her into the air. It was what had kept him alive. Now he was finally home. But something was wrong. When he turned onto his street, his stomach knotted. The front yard was unkempt, weeds pushing through cracks in the sidewalk. The porch light, the one he had always left on when he was away, was dark. And then he saw it, the "for sale" sign. Jake stopped, staring, his heart pounded in his ears, his breath coming fast and shallow. This was his house, his home. What the hell was going on? He climbed the steps, tried his key. It didn't fit. He pounded on the door. "Lena!" he shouted, his voice raw. "It's me! It's Jake!" Nothing. His gut twisted. He turned, looking to the house next door, where Mrs. Reynolds, their elderly neighbor, peeked out from behind her curtain. He met her eyes, and she hesitated before opening the door, stepping onto her porch with a nervous expression. "Jake," she said softly. His chest tightened. "Where's my family?" She hesitated. "Oh, honey, no one told you." The ground beneath him felt unsteady. "They left," she said gently. "Months ago. Thought you weren't coming back." Jake's breath hitched. "No," he said automatically. "That's not... She wouldn't do that. She knew I was coming home." Mrs. Reynolds frowned. "There were letters, calls. When you never answered, they figured... I don't know, maybe they thought..." She trailed off, shaking her head. Jake swayed slightly, the weight in his duffel bag suddenly unbearable. "Where are they?" he croaked. She hesitated again before murmuring an address across town. He didn't remember thanking her, didn't remember walking away. All he knew was that his home was gone. It was a quiet neighborhood, nicer than where they had lived before, the kind of place with fresh paint and flower beds and bikes left on lawns. Jake sat in his truck across the street, staring at the house where his family now lived. He felt like an intruder, a ghost in his own life. Then the front door opened. Lena stepped out, looking just as he remembered, her hair pulled into the loose ponytail she used to wear when she was cleaning or chasing the kids. But then Jake's eyes fell on him. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, stepping onto the porch beside her, laughing at something she said. He bent down, scooping up Jake's daughter, and she laughed, wrapping her arms around his neck. Jake's hands curled into fists. His chest heaved, breath ragged. Then he saw his son, kicking a soccer ball across the yard, a boy Jake barely recognized. His own blood, his own family, and they were happy without him. His grip on the steering wheel tightened until his knuckles turned white. He wanted to storm up the driveway, demand answers, demand his life back. But what was the point? They had already moved on. The whiskey burned on the way down, but it didn't burn away the ache in his chest. The bar was dimly lit, full of people laughing, drinking, forgetting. He wanted to forget too. "Jake?" He looked up. A familiar face stood near the bar, Darren Cooper, an old Marine buddy. "Shit," Darren muttered, taking in Jake's hollow expression. "You just get back." Jake nodded. Darren sat beside him. "You see your family?" Jake laughed bitterly, knocking back another shot. "Saw 'em. Didn't say hi, though. They've got a new life now. New house. New guy." Darren exhaled slowly. "I'm sorry, man." Jake stared at his empty glass. "I fought for them, Darren, every damn day, and now I don't even have a place to sleep." "You got a place," Darren said firmly. "I've got a couch, and a job for you if you want it." Jake shook his head. "I don't even know who I am anymore." Darren clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Then it's time to find out." Jake sat at the motel desk that night, staring at the blank page in front of him. He had spent years writing letters from war zones, letters that often never made it home. Now, he was writing one from across town. To my kids, I love you. That hasn't changed. It never will. I don't know if I deserve to be in your life. I don't know if you even remember me, but if you ever want to talk, I'll be here. I fought to come home to you, and even though home isn't what I thought it would be, I'm still here. He folded the letter and sealed the envelope. He wouldn't knock. He wouldn't disrupt their lives. Instead, he left it in the mailbox and walked away. As Jake drove toward the horizon, he passed the Greyhound station. Another bus had just arrived. Young soldiers stepped off, duffel bags slung over their shoulders. Some would return to open arms. Some, like Jake, would return to nothing. But Jake clenched the wheel tighter. He had survived war, and somehow he would survive this too. Some veterans come home to parades, some come home to silence, and some don't come home at all.